The transport shuttle doors opened with a soft hiss, and Leo stepped onto the polished floor of Station Harmony. He clutched the small carrier close to his chest, feeling the familiar weight shift inside as Shadow moved around. The 11-year-old boy had traveled 3 months to reach this place, the biggest meeting point for alien species in this part of the galaxy. His mom had sent him here to stay with his aunt while she finished her research contract on a mining colony. "Stay quiet, buddy," Leo whispered to the carrier. A soft chirp answered him back. Around him, hundreds of aliens moved through the arrival terminal. Some walked on 2 legs like him, others floated, and a few skittered on multiple limbs. Leo had seen pictures before, but nothing prepared him for the real thing. A tall being covered in blue fur passed by, followed by something that looked like a walking crystal. Then the alarm started. Red lights flashed across every surface. A loud warning sound blasted through the terminal, making Leo jump. The carrier in his arms shook as Shadow let out a startled yowl. "WAPONS detected. Security protocol active. All civilians remain still." Leo froze. Weapons? He looked around confused. He didn't have any weapons, just his backpack and Shadow's carrier. Heavy footsteps thundered toward him. A dozen armored figures surrounded Leo in seconds, their weapons pointed at him from every direction. The leader was tall and covered in dark green scales with 4 arms. Each arm held a different device, all of them aimed at Leo. "Drop the container, human," the alien commander hissed. His voice came out sharp and angry. "But it's just my pet," Leo said, his voice shaking. Scanners detected a biological weapon signature. "Release it now, or we will take it by force." Leo's hands tightened on the carrier. "No, you'll scare him." More security officers arrived. The crowd of civilians backed away, creating a wide, empty circle around Leo. Some aliens were taking pictures with their devices. Others were speaking rapidly in languages Leo couldn't understand. A new alien pushed through the security team. She had feathers instead of hair, and her arms ended in wing-like appendages. A golden badge hung around her long neck. "I am Representative Myra of the Galactic Council," she announced. "Young human, our scanners have never been wrong. Whatever is in that container is classified as a forbidden biological weapon under Treaty 4492. You must surrender it immediately." "He's not a weapon," Leo protested. "His name is Shadow. He's my friend." "Friends do not register as Class 5 predators," Myra said. Her feathers ruffled in what might have been confusion or anger. "What species is this creature?" "A black panther. Well, a cub. He's only 6 months old." The security team exchanged looks. Several of them adjusted their weapons to higher settings. "Panther," Myra repeated slowly. She tapped something on a device attached to her wing. Her eyes went wide. "You brought an apex predator from Earth to this station? Are you insane?" "He's just a baby," Leo said. "That baby, as you call it, has claws that can tear through metal and jaws strong enough to crush bone. Our records show panthers are solitary hunters that kill prey 3 times their size." "Shadow doesn't hunt, I feed him." "You feed it?" The security commander's scales seemed to darken. "You keep it alive deliberately." "Of course I do. He'd die otherwise." This statement caused an uproar among the watching crowd. Aliens chittered, clicked, and warbled to each other in dozens of languages. Leo caught words being translated through his earpiece. "Madness, death wish, typical human." Myra held up a wing for silence. "Human child, I do not think you understand the severity of this situation. After the Carnivore Wars, the galaxy banned all apex predators. They are too dangerous. They cannot be reasoned with. They exist only to kill." "Shadow's not like that," Leo insisted. "Then prove it. Open the container." "You'll shoot him." "We will only fire if it attacks. You have my word as a council representative." Leo looked at the dozens of weapons pointed at him. He looked at Shadow's carrier. Inside, he could hear soft, confused sounds. Shadow was probably scared from all the noise and lights. "Okay," Leo said quietly, "but everyone needs to stop yelling. You're frightening him." He knelt down slowly and placed the carrier on the floor. The security team tensed, their weapons tracking his every movement. Leo unlatched the front panel and pulled the door open. For a moment, nothing happened. Then a small black shape tumbled out onto the polished floor. Shadow was barely the size of a house cat, all dark fur and oversized paws. His ears were pinned back against his head, and his yellow eyes were wide with fear. He looked at the circle of armed aliens surrounding him and let out a tiny mew. The security commander took 3 steps backward. Several other officers did the same. Shadow spotted Leo and immediately ran to him, climbing up the boy's shirt with sharp little claws. He buried his face against Leo's neck, trembling. "It's okay, boy," Leo murmured, stroking the cub's head. "They're just scared, they don't understand." "Understand what?" Myra asked. She hadn't moved away, but her feathers were standing straight up. "That not everything with teeth and claws wants to hurt you," Leo said. He gently pulled Shadow away from his neck and held him out so everyone could see. "Look at him. Does he look dangerous?" Shadow chose that moment to yawn, showing off tiny white fangs. Half the security team raised their weapons higher. Leo sighed. This was going to be harder than he thought. "Representative Myra," he said carefully, "what happens now?" The avian alien tapped her device again. "Now, human child, we confiscate your predator and send it to a containment facility, and you will face charges for violating galactic law." "But I didn't know about any law." "Ignorance is not an excuse. That creature is a weapon under every definition we have. It stays here and you will come with us." Shadow made a small sound and pressed closer to Leo's chest. The boy felt his throat tighten. He had rescued Shadow from a flood back on Earth. The cub's mother had died, and Leo had bottle-fed him every day for months. Shadow was family. "No," Leo said firmly, "I'm not giving him up. This is not a negotiation." "Then I want a trial. You said I'm charged with a crime. Don't I get to defend myself?" Myra's feathers smoothed down slightly. She glanced at the security commander, who shrugged with 2 of his 4 arms. "Very well," Myra said finally. "The Galactic Court will hear your case, but until then that predator must be secured. He stays with me or there's no trial." They stared at each other for a long moment. Around them, the crowd had grown larger. Someone was broadcasting this live across the station networks. Leo could see himself on a nearby display screen, holding Shadow while surrounded by weapons. "Fine," Myra snapped. "But you will both be confined to a holding area. If that creature harms anyone, the consequences will be severe." "He won't," Leo promised. As security escorted him away, Leo held Shadow close and whispered, "Don't worry, buddy. We'll figure this out together." Shadow purred softly against his chest, completely unaware that he had just become the galaxy's most controversial arrival. The holding room was plain and gray, with a single window showing the vast darkness of space outside. Leo sat on a bench with Shadow curled in his lap, the cubs breathing slow and peaceful. 3 hours had passed since they arrived at the station, and Leo still couldn't believe this was happening. A door panel slid open. Representative Myra walked in, her taloned feet clicking on the metal floor. She carried a data pad under one wing. "The trial begins in 1 hour," she said without greeting. "I came to explain what you are facing." Leo looked up. "You mean explain why everyone thinks Shadow's a weapon?" Myra settled onto a perch across from him. She studied Shadow with her large, round eyes. "Do you know about the Carnivore Wars, human child?" "No." 400 years ago, a species called the Ralnathi attempted to conquer the galaxy. They bred massive predators as living weapons, creatures with acid blood, armored skin, intelligence enough to follow orders but not enough to disobey. Millions died before we stopped them. Myra's feathers trembled. After that war, the Galactic Council banned all apex predators, no exceptions. "But Shadow's not a weapon, he's a pet." "What is a pet?" Leo blinked. "You don't know what a pet is." "Explain it to me." A pet is an animal you keep with you because you care about it. You feed it, play with it, give it a home. It's like family. Myra tilted her head sideways. A gesture Leo was learning meant confusion. Why would any species willingly live with a predator? Because they're not just predators. They're smart and loyal, and they love you back. Love, Myra repeated the word like it was foreign. You claim this creature feels love for you. Yes. How do you know? Leo stroked Shadow's head. The cub opened one yellow eye and purred louder. He trusts me. When I found him, he was tiny and alone. I could have left him, but I didn't. I fed him every day, kept him warm, played with him. Now he follows me everywhere. He sleeps next to me every night. If that's not love, I don't know what is. Or he stays close because you provide food, Myra suggested. Predators are opportunistic. They understand advantage. Then why does he play with me? I don't give him food. When we play. Leo gently lifted Shadow and set him on the floor. The cub stretched, arching his back. Leo pulled a small ball from his pocket and rolled it across the room. Shadow's eyes locked onto the movement immediately. He crouched low, wiggled his hindquarters, then pounced. The ball bounced off a wall and Shadow chased it, batting it around with his paws. Myra stood up abruptly, her wings spreading. It is hunting the sphere. No, he's playing with it. Watch. Shadow grabbed the ball in his mouth and trotted back to Leo. He dropped it at the boy's feet and sat down, tail swishing back and forth. He brought it back, so I'll throw it again, Leo explained. That's playing fetch. This makes no sense. Why would a predator return captured prey? Because it's not prey, it's a toy. Leo threw the ball again. Shadow chased it with obvious joy, his movements clumsy and playful. When he brought it back the second time, Myra made a sound Leo had never heard before, something between a chirp and a whistle. On my world, Myra said slowly, we had creatures like this once, before we evolved intelligence. They hunted us in the forests. We survived by fleeing to the mountains and eventually developing tools to fight back. The idea of approaching one willingly, of touching it, she shuddered. It is instinctively terrifying. Shadow's never hunted anything in his life except that ball. Yet the capability exists. Those claws could open my throat in seconds. But he won't. That's what you don't understand. Just because something can hurt you doesn't mean it will. Myra was quiet for a moment. Shadow had gotten bored with the ball and was now investigating a corner of the room, sniffing everything with his small pink nose. The prosecutor assigned to your case is named Vin, Myra said finally. He is saurian, a reptilian species. His people nearly went extinct during the carnivore wars. He will not be sympathetic. What will he do? He will present evidence that Earth is a death world filled with dangerous predators. He will argue that humans cannot be trusted to control such creatures. He may even suggest that humans themselves should be classified as weapons. That's crazy. Is it? You keep predators as companions. You live among creatures that could kill you. What other species does this? Lots of humans do. We have dogs, cats, birds, even reptiles. Some people keep snakes. Snakes, Myra's feathers flattened against her body. Constrictors, venomous species. Both sometimes. And these snakes do not kill their keepers. Almost never. We train them, take care of them, and they become tame. Tame, Myra tested the word. You have a word for making a predator safe. We have lots of words for it. Tame, domesticated, trained. Humans have been doing this for thousands of years. Myra tapped something on her data pad. I am looking at Earth's evolutionary history. Your ancestors hunted with wolves. Yeah, wolves became dogs. It happened a long time ago. You turned one apex predator into an ally to help you hunt other prey. I guess so, yeah. Incredible, Myra breathed. And these dogs, they still exist. Millions of them, they're everywhere on Earth. People love dogs. This changes everything I thought I understood about humans. Myra looked at Shadow, who had now curled up in a patch of sunlight from the window. But it does not change galactic law. The court will rule based on regulations, not emotions. Then I'll make them understand during the trial. How? I don't know yet, but Shadow's not a weapon and I'm not giving him up. There has to be a way to prove it. Myra stood and walked to the door. Before leaving, she turned back. Human child, what is your name? I have been calling you human child this entire time. Leo, my name's Leo. Leo, she repeated. I want you to know something. Personally, I do not believe you mean harm. I can see you care for that creature. But the law exists for a reason. It has protected the galaxy for 4 centuries. Even if it's wrong. Laws are not right or wrong. They simply are. That's not true. If a law hurts innocent people, it's wrong, and Shadow's innocent. Myra's feathers ruffled again. Perhaps the court will decide. She paused at the doorway. One more thing. When you present your case, do not let that creature out of your arms. If it runs free in the courtroom, the security team will kill it instantly. I won't let him go, Leo promised. After Myra left, Leo picked up Shadow and held him close. The cub yawned and licked Leo's chin with his rough tongue. We're in trouble, buddy, Leo whispered, but we'll get through this somehow. Shadow purred and closed his eyes, trusting completely in the boy who had saved his life. Leo wished he felt that same confidence. The trial was about to begin, and he had no idea how to convince an entire galaxy that friendship could exist between species that should be enemies. Outside the window, Station Harmony gleamed against the stars. Somewhere in that massive structure, a courtroom was being prepared. Evidence was being gathered. Arguments were being formed. And one 11-year-old boy was about to challenge 400 years of galactic law with nothing but a 6-month-old panther cub and the belief that love mattered more than fear. The courtroom was massive, with curved walls that rose up 5 stories high. Hundreds of seats filled with aliens from dozens of species, all of them staring down at the center floor where Leo stood. He held Shadow in his arms, the cub's weight comforting against his chest. A judge sat on a raised platform at the front. He was made entirely of blue crystal, his body catching the light and throwing rainbow patterns across the walls. When he spoke, his voice echoed from everywhere at once. This court is now in session. I am Judge Torin. We are here to determine if the creature known as Shadow constitutes a weapon under galactic law. The judge's crystalline eyes focused on Leo. Human child, you stand accused of bringing a banned biological weapon onto this station. How do you plead? Not guilty, Leo said. His voice sounded small in the huge room. Prosecutor Vin, present your case. A tall reptilian alien stood up from a table to Leo's left. His scales were dark red, and his eyes were cold and yellow. He wore a black robe that made him look even more intimidating. Thank you, Judge Torin. Vin tapped a control device. The air above the courtroom floor shimmered and a holographic image appeared. It showed a massive lion, jaws open in a roar. This is an African lion from Earth, Vin announced. Weight 400 pounds, bite force 650 pounds per square inch, claws 4 inches long, status apex predator. The image changed to show a tiger. Bengal tiger, weight 500 pounds, can kill prey 3 times its size, hunts alone, no natural predators except humans. Another image, a grizzly bear standing on its hind legs. Grizzly bear, weight 800 pounds, can run 30 miles per hour. One swipe of its paw can decapitate a human. The images kept coming. Wolves, crocodiles, great white sharks, eagles, Komodo dragons, each one larger and more frightening than the last. These creatures, Vin continued, all come from Earth, the human homeworld. A Class 12 death world where survival requires constant adaptation to extreme danger. And humans, Judge Torin, do not just survive among these predators. They live with them. They keep them as pets. Murmurs spread through the watching crowd. Leo heard words like insane and suicidal being translated through his earpiece. Vin pointed at Shadow. That creature is a black panther, a leopard variant. Fully grown, it will weigh 200 pounds and be capable of killing animals twice that size. It has night vision, retractable claws, and jaw strength sufficient to crush bone. It is designed by evolution to be a perfect killer. He's just a baby, Leo protested. A baby that will grow, Vin snapped. Judge Torin, I submit that this creature meets every definition of a biological weapon. It is a predator, it is dangerous, and it has no place on a civilian station. Judge Torin's crystal body pulsed with light. Human child, do you have a response? Leo took a deep breath. Shadow squirmed in his arms and he adjusted his grip. Everything Prosecutor Vin said is true. Shadow will grow bigger. He does have claws and sharp teeth, but that doesn't make him a weapon. Explain, the judge said. A weapon is something you use to hurt people. Shadow's never hurt anyone. He's not trained to attack. He doesn't want to fight. He's just a normal animal who wants to play and eat and sleep. Normal, Vin repeated. There is nothing normal about keeping a predator as a companion. It defies all logic. Not for humans, Leo said. We've been doing it forever. Vin tapped his controls again. A new image appeared, showing a wolf pack hunting a deer. 40,000 years ago, human ancestors encountered these creatures. Gray wolves, savage pack hunters that competed with humans for the same food sources. Any rational species would have driven them to extinction. Instead, humans befriended them. They brought wolves into their camps, fed them, bred them, created hundreds of variations. The image shifted to show different dog breeds. These are all descended from wolves. Humans took a predator and transformed it into a companion. That's right, Leo said proudly. That is disturbing, Vin corrected. It shows humans have a fundamental inability to recognize danger. You see a creature with fangs and think friend instead of threat. This makes you unpredictable and potentially dangerous to other species. Or it makes us good at building relationships, Leo argued. Relationships, Vin scoffed. You cannot have a relationship with a predator. It tolerates you because you provide food. The moment you fail to feed it, it will turn on you. That's not true. Shadow loves me. Prove it. Leo looked down at Shadow. The cub was awake now, watching the holograms with curious eyes. When he noticed Leo looking at him, Shadow reached up with one small paw and touched the boy's face. He trusts me, Leo said. If I put him down right now, he won't run away. He'll stay close to me because he wants to, not because he has to. Then do it, Vin challenged. Release your predator in this courtroom. Let us see if it stays or if it attacks. No, Representative Myra stood up from her seat. That would be reckless. Security protocols forbid it. I am willing to waive those protocols, Judge Torin said, if the human child agrees. Leo's heart pounded. He looked around the courtroom. Hundreds of aliens watched him, many of them looking terrified. Security officers stood at every entrance, their weapons ready. If Shadow did anything wrong, they would shoot him. But Leo knew Shadow. He trusted him completely. Okay, Leo said. I'll put him down. Leo, no, Myra called out. This is exactly what Vin wants. He is trying to prove your creature is dangerous. Shadow's not dangerous, Leo said firmly. He knelt down and gently set Shadow on the smooth floor. The cub sat down and looked up at him, tail curled around his paws. The entire courtroom held its breath. Shadow yawned. Then he started grooming himself, licking one paw and rubbing it over his ear. Vin watched for a moment, then clapped his hands together sharply. The sudden noise echoed through the silent room. Shadow's head snapped up, ears forward. Predator reflex, Vin announced. Notice how it immediately focuses on sudden sound. It is constantly alert, constantly hunting. He's just looking around, Leo said. Vin pulled something from his robe, a small device that emitted a high-pitched squeak like a mouse. Shadow's eyes locked onto it immediately, his body tensed, hindquarters wiggling. No, Shadow, Leo said quietly. Stay. Shadow looked at Leo, then back at the squeaking device. His tail lashed once, but he stayed sitting. Vin frowned and squeaked the device again, louder this time. Shadow stood up and took one step forward, then stopped and looked back at Leo. Stay, buddy, Leo repeated. Shadow sat back down. Vin's expression darkened. He threw the device across the room. It bounced and squeaked frantically. Shadow watched it roll but didn't move. Instead, he walked back to Leo and pressed against the boy's leg. "Impossible," Vin muttered. Leo picked Shadow up and hugged him. "He chose me over his instincts. That's what companions do. They put their friends first." Judge Torin leaned forward. "This is most unusual. Prosecutor Vin, do you have additional evidence?" "I do, but I request a recess. This development requires further analysis." "Granted, we will reconvene in 2 hours." As the courtroom emptied, Myra approached Leo. "That was very risky. If Shadow had chased that device, Vin would have declared victory." "But he didn't," Leo said, "because he's not a weapon, he's my friend." Myra's feathers were standing up in what Leo now recognized as excitement. "Human child, Leo, you may have just done something remarkable. You proved that predators can be controlled through bonds rather than force. The galaxy has never seen anything like this." Leo scratched Shadow behind the ears. "Where I come from, everyone knows this already. It's not special." "To us," Myra said softly, "it is revolutionary." In the back of the courtroom, Vin stood with his assistants, reviewing data on multiple screens. His expression was troubled. The human had surprised him, but the trial was far from over, and Vin had spent his entire career prosecuting weapons violations. He would not lose this case to a child and a predator, no matter how well trained it appeared to be. The main plaza of Station Harmony stretched out like a small city under a transparent dome. Real plants grew in gardens, water fountains bubbled, and thousands of aliens moved through the space going about their daily business. Leo stood at one end of the plaza, holding Shadow's leash. The cub sat beside him, looking around with wide yellow eyes. "This is your final chance to reconsider," Judge Torin's voice echoed from speakers. The crystalline judge watched from a raised observation platform along with Vin, Myra, and about 2,000 spectators who had gathered to watch. "I'm sure," Leo called back. "Shadow won't hurt anyone, I'll prove it." The demonstration had been Judge Torin's idea. After the recess, Vin had argued that Shadow only behaved in the controlled courtroom environment. Put him in a real situation with crowds and chaos, and his predator nature would emerge. Judge Torin agreed this was a fair test. Now news drones hovered overhead, broadcasting the event across the entire station. Leo could see himself on giant screens, a small human boy with a Black Panther cub. "You may begin," Judge Torin announced. Leo unclipped Shadow's leash. The cub shook himself and looked up at Leo. "Okay, buddy," Leo said quietly. "Just like at home, ready." He pulled out the small ball from his pocket and showed it to Shadow. The cub's eyes locked onto it immediately. Leo threw the ball across the plaza. It bounced off a fountain and rolled toward a cluster of alien civilians who jumped backward with shrieks. Shadow took off running. His small paws barely made sound on the smooth floor. He pounced on the ball, grabbed it in his mouth, and ran straight back to Leo. He dropped it at the boy's feet and sat down, tail swishing. Scattered applause came from some sections of the watching crowd. Leo threw the ball again, this time in a different direction. Shadow chased it past a group of insectoid aliens who scrambled away, then brought it back perfectly. "See," Leo shouted to the judge, "he's just playing." "Continue," Judge Torin said. For the next 10 minutes, Leo and Shadow played fetch while aliens watched nervously. Some brave spectators moved closer to get a better view. A few even pulled out cameras to take pictures. Then Shadow got distracted. A small flying creature, something like a bird but with 6 wings, fluttered past. Shadow's head turned to track it. His body lowered into a hunting crouch. "Shadow, no," Leo said quickly. "Leave it." But the creature flew lower, chirping loudly. Shadow's tail lashed, every muscle in his small body tensed. "Shadow," Leo warned. The creature landed on a bench 5 meters away. Shadow couldn't resist. He bolted toward it. Gasps erupted from the crowd. Security officers reached for their weapons. Shadow reached the bench and leaped, claws extended. The flying creature took off just in time. Shadow landed on the bench, looked around confused, then jumped down and trotted back to Leo like nothing had happened. Predator behavior, Vin's voice boomed across the plaza. It attempted to hunt. This proves my point exactly. He's a cat, Leo shouted back. Cats chase things, that doesn't make him dangerous. He has claws and hunting instincts. That is the definition of dangerous. Leo was about to respond when something happened overhead. A loud, grinding noise echoed through the plaza. Everyone looked up. One of the cargo platforms that transported goods across the station had malfunctioned. It hung suspended 50 meters up, swaying dangerously. Warning lights flashed along its edges. Then the support cables snapped. Heavy cargo containers began falling toward the plaza. People screamed and scattered in every direction. Leo saw where the containers would land, and his blood went cold. A group of small aliens, children from the look of them, were playing near a fountain directly under the falling cargo. They were round and furry with big eyes, probably no more than 5 years old. They looked up at the falling containers with confused expressions, too young to understand the danger. The containers fell fast, too fast. Station security was too far away. The children's parents were screaming but couldn't reach them in time. Shadow saw them too. The panther cub took off like a black arrow. He was small but incredibly fast. He reached the closest child in seconds and slammed into it with his shoulder, knocking the small alien out of the path of falling containers. The first container crashed down right where the child had been standing. Metal shrieked against the plaza floor. More containers followed, creating a deadly rain of heavy cargo. Shadow didn't stop. He grabbed another child by its clothing and dragged it away from the impact zone. Then another. His movements were precise and purposeful, nothing like the playful kitten from moments before. The largest container was falling straight toward a child who had frozen in fear. Shadow ran directly under the falling cargo, grabbed the child in his jaws as gently as possible, and sprinted away. The container hit the ground with a thunderous crash, missing them by inches. When the last container fell, Shadow stood in the middle of the destruction, 4 small alien children huddled behind him. He faced the scattered cargo with his back arched and his teeth bared, as if ready to fight the inanimate objects to protect the children. Silence filled the plaza. Then the children's parents rushed forward, crying and calling out. They scooped up their offspring, checking. For injuries, the children were shaken but completely unharmed. One of the parents, a furry alien with tentacle-like arms, approached Shadow carefully. The panther cub was still in defensive mode, breathing hard, adrenaline clearly pumping through his small body. Shadow, Leo called out as he ran over. It's okay, the danger's gone. At the sound of Leo's voice, Shadow immediately relaxed. His fur settled down, his tail stopped lashing. He walked over to Leo and pressed against his legs, trembling slightly. The parent who had approached knelt down a short distance away. Tears were running down its furry face. Your creature saved my child. He saved all of them, another parent said, this one tall and blue with 3 eyes. The first parent reached out slowly toward Shadow. The panther cub sniffed the offered hand, then allowed himself to be petted. The parent stroked his head gently, crying softly. Thank you, it whispered. Thank you. More parents approached. Soon Shadow was surrounded by grateful aliens who touched him carefully, respectfully. The children, braver now, came closer too. The smallest one, the first that Shadow had saved, reached out with a tiny paw and touched Shadow's nose. Shadow licked the child's paw. The child giggled. Leo looked up at the observation platform. Judge Torin was standing, his crystalline body blazing with light. Myra had her wings spread wide, her beak open in shock. Even Vin seemed at a loss for words. News drones swarmed closer, capturing every moment. The footage was already spreading across the station networks, then beyond to other systems. Judge Torin, Leo called out, does a weapon save lives or does it take them? The plaza had filled with aliens now, thousands of them. They had watched Shadow risk his own life to save children from a species he had never seen before. Children who couldn't possibly be food or territory or anything that would benefit him. He had saved them simply because they needed saving. "This session is adjourned," Judge Torin announced. His voice sounded different, less formal. "We will reconvene tomorrow for final arguments, but I believe we have seen something today that requires careful consideration." As the crowd slowly dispersed, people kept approaching Leo and Shadow. Some wanted to take pictures, others just wanted to see the small Black Panther up close. Security formed a protective ring around them, but the guards looked different now, less hostile, more curious. One security officer, the green-scaled commander from earlier, knelt down to Shadow's level. "I misjudged you, small predator," he said quietly. "I thought you were a weapon, but weapons do not choose to protect strangers." Shadow, exhausted from his heroics, simply yawned and curled up at Leo's feet. Myra flew down from the platform and landed near Leo. "The entire galaxy just watched that," she said softly. "Every station, every ship, every settled world, they saw what Shadow did." "Does that mean we win?" Leo asked hopefully. "I do not know, but you have given the galaxy something to think about. Perhaps predators and prey can be more than just enemies. Perhaps humans understand something the rest of us have forgotten." "What's that?" "That courage and compassion are not determined by what species you are," Myra said. "They are determined by what you choose to do." Leo picked up the sleeping Shadow and held him close. The cub purred softly, completely unaware that he had just changed the galaxy's understanding of what it meant to be dangerous. Leo woke up in the holding room to find Shadow already awake, sitting by the window and watching ships come and go from the station. The night had been restless. Leo kept replaying yesterday's events in his mind, wondering if it would be enough to change the court's decision. A knock came at the door. When it opened, Leo expected to see Myra or maybe a security guard. Instead, a small, furry alien child stood there, the same one Shadow had saved first. Behind the child stood its parent, the one with tentacle-like arms. "We hope we are not intruding," the parent said nervously. "My name is Pella. This is my offspring, Keto." "It's okay," Leo said. "Come in." Keto walked straight to Shadow and sat down next to him. The panther cub turned away from the window and sniffed the child, then began grooming Keto's fur with his rough tongue. The child made happy, chirping sounds. "Keto has not left my side since yesterday," Pella explained. "Too frightened. But this morning, Keto insisted on coming here to see the brave creature who saved them." "Shadow's pretty great," Leo agreed. "More than great. My child would be dead without your companion." Pella's voice cracked with emotion. "I wanted to thank you properly and to tell you that my entire family has sent messages to the Galactic Council. We are not the only ones. Hundreds of families are demanding that Shadow be freed." "Really?" "The footage from yesterday has been watched billions of times across the galaxy. Many species are questioning the weapon ban for the first time in centuries." Pella moved closer, tentacles gesturing as they spoke. "You must understand, Leo. We grew up learning that all predators are evil, that they exist only to kill. What Shadow did yesterday contradicted everything we were taught." Keto had fallen asleep against Shadow's side. The panther cub carefully adjusted his position so the child would be more comfortable, then rested his head on his paws. "He likes children," Leo said. "Back on Earth, he would play with my little cousin all the time." "This is what I do not understand," Pella said. "How do humans live with such creatures and not fear them constantly?" "I guess we just see them differently. We focus on the relationship instead of the danger." "But the danger is real. Shadow has claws and teeth." "So do you," Leo pointed out, gesturing to Pella's tentacles which ended in sharp points. "But I'm not scared of you." Pella looked at their own limbs with surprise. "I never thought of it that way." More knocking came at the door. This time it was a whole group of aliens. Some were parents whose children Shadow had saved. Others were just station residents who wanted to meet the famous panther cub. Within an hour, the holding room was crowded with visitors. One alien, tall and made of what looked like living metal, knelt down to examine Shadow closely. Fascinating. The musculature is optimized for explosive speed. The retractable claws allow for both precision and power. Evolution has made this creature a perfect hunter. But he chose not to hunt, said another visitor, this one resembling a walking plant. He chose to protect. That choice matters. A debate started among the visitors. Some argued that Shadow was an exception, a specially trained individual that didn't represent his species. Others insisted that if one predator could be trusted, maybe others could too. Leo listened to them argue, surprised by how much had changed in just one day. Yesterday, everyone wanted Shadow locked away. Today, they were questioning centuries of law. Representative Myra arrived an hour before the trial was scheduled to resume. She looked tired but excited. The Galactic Council has been in emergency session all night. She announced to the crowded room. The response to yesterday's incident has been overwhelming. Some council members are calling for immediate changes to the weapon ban. Others insist the law must stand. What do you think will happen? Leo asked. I do not know, but Judge Torin has requested something unusual. He wants to hear testimony from the families Shadow saved. Myra looked at Pella. Will you speak? Pella wrapped their tentacles protectively around the sleeping Keto. Yes, I will tell them that laws mean nothing if they punish heroes. When the trial reconvened, the courtroom was even more packed than before. Aliens stood in the aisles, sat on the steps, crowded against the walls. The entire galaxy was watching. Judge Torin called the session to order, his crystalline body glowing brightly. Before we hear final arguments, this court will hear testimony from those directly affected by yesterday's incident. One by one, parents took the stand. They described watching their children nearly die. They described Shadow's actions in detail. Some cried as they spoke. Others spoke with fierce anger at the idea that their savior might be classified as a weapon. My child woke up crying last night, one parent testified. Not from fear of the accident, but from fear that Shadow would be taken away. My child wants to see the brave panther again to thank him properly. Another parent, the tall blue alien with 3 eyes, stood before the court and said simply, "There is no law more important than protecting the innocent." Shadow understood this. Perhaps he understands justice better than we do. Prosecutor Vin listened to all of it with a stone face. When it was his turn to speak, he stood and addressed the court. I do not deny that Shadow's actions were heroic, but heroism does not change biology. That creature will grow larger and stronger. Its instincts will become more powerful. What happens in 5 years when it is fully grown? What happens when its prey drive overcomes whatever training the human has provided? Shadow isn't trained to not hunt, Leo interrupted. He just doesn't want to hurt people. Vin turned to face him. And how do you know this? Can you read its mind? Can you guarantee it will never harm anyone? Can you guarantee your own people will never harm anyone? Leo shot back. Just because something is possible doesn't mean it will happen. The difference, Vin said, coldly, is that my people have laws, morals, and ethics. That creature has only instinct. You're wrong, Leo said. Yesterday proved you're wrong. Yesterday proved nothing except that we got lucky. Next time we might not be. Judge Torin raised a crystalline hand for silence. Prosecutor Vin, what is your recommendation? The law is clear, Your Honor. Shadow must be classified as a weapon and removed from civilian space. I recommend relocation to a containment facility where he can be studied but pose no threat. That is a prison sentence for doing nothing wrong, Myra interjected. It is a safety precaution, Vin corrected. Judge Torin, Leo said loudly, can I say something? Speak, human child. Leo stood up holding Shadow in his arms. The courtroom fell silent. Everyone keeps talking about what Shadow might do in the future. What if he grows too big? What if his instincts take over? What if he becomes dangerous? But nobody's talking about what he's already done. He saved 4 lives yesterday. 4 children who are alive right now because Shadow chose to help them instead of running away or hiding. Leo looked around at the thousands of watching faces. You all live by rules that say predators are evil, but Shadow doesn't know those rules. He just knows that someone needed help and he could give it. Maybe that makes him better than any of us. Maybe we should be learning from him instead of judging him. Well said, human child, Judge Torrin replied. But the law cannot be changed based on emotion alone. Prosecutor Vin is correct that we must consider future risk, not just past actions. Then make a new law, Leo said. One that judges individuals instead of entire species. One that gives everyone a chance to prove who they are instead of assuming the worst. The courtroom erupted in noise. Aliens arguing with each other, some supporting Leo's idea, others opposing it. Judge Torrin had to call for order multiple times. Finally, he spoke. This court will recess for 1 hour while I consider all testimony and evidence. When we return, I will render my verdict. As everyone filed out, Leo held Shadow close and whispered, "We did our best, buddy. Now we just have to hope it's enough." The hour felt like forever. Leo sat in a waiting room with Shadow curled up in his lap. Myra stood nearby, her feathers constantly shifting with nervous energy. Pella and Keto had stayed too, along with several other families whose children Shadow had saved. "Whatever happens," Pella said softly, "you changed something important yesterday. People are thinking differently now." "But will it be enough?" Leo asked. Before anyone could answer, a guard announced that the court was ready. They all filed back into the massive courtroom, which was somehow even more crowded than before. Leo had to squeeze through packed aisles to reach his spot on the floor. Judge Torrin sat on his platform, his crystalline body pulsing with different colors. When everyone settled, he spoke. "This has been the most difficult case of my career. The law is clear. The precedent is established. For 400 years, the weapon ban has protected the galaxy from the horrors of the carnivore wars. To overturn it even partially is not a decision I make lightly." Leo's heart sank. That sounded like bad news. "However," Judge Torrin continued, "law exists to serve justice, not to replace it. If a law prevents us from recognizing heroism, from rewarding compassion, from acknowledging growth, then that law has failed its purpose." The judge's colors shifted to a bright gold. "I have reviewed all evidence and testimony. I have consulted with the Galactic Council, and I have watched the footage of yesterday's incident no fewer than 20 times. Each time I see the same thing, a creature making a choice, not acting on instinct, not responding to training, but choosing to put itself in danger to save lives." Judge Torrin stood up, something Leo had never seen him do before. "Therefore, I rule that Shadow does not meet the definition of a weapon under current galactic law. A weapon is a tool without will used to cause harm. Shadow demonstrated both will and the intent to prevent harm. He is not a weapon." Cheers erupted through half the courtroom. The other half sat in stunned silence. Leo felt tears running down his face. "Furthermore," Judge Torrin raised his voice over the noise, "I am recommending to the Galactic Council the creation of a new legal category, companion animals. These will be defined as creatures who live with sapient species not as tools or food, but as partners and friends. They will have protections under law and their caretakers will have responsibilities." More cheers. Myra's wings were spread wide in triumph. Pella hugged Keto tightly. "The council has already begun drafting this legislation." Judge Torrin continued, "It will take time to implement across all systems, but effective immediately, Shadow is cleared of all charges and free to remain on this station with his human companion." Leo couldn't speak. He just held Shadow close while the panther cub purred, completely unaware of what had just happened. Prosecutor Vin stood up. "Your Honor, I must protest. This sets a dangerous precedent. If we allow one predator, others will follow. Where does it end?" "It ends with choice," Judge Torrin said firmly. "We will judge each case individually. Some predators will indeed be too dangerous. Others, like Shadow, will prove themselves worthy of trust. That is what justice means. Individual assessment, not blanket judgment. Vin sat down, clearly unhappy but unable to argue further. This court is adjourned, Judge Torin announced. And may I add a personal note? Leo, you are one of the bravest individuals I have encountered. You stood up for what you believed was right even when the entire galaxy told you that you were wrong. That took tremendous courage. As the courtroom emptied, people swarmed around Leo and Shadow. News drones hovered everywhere, capturing every moment. Leo did his best to answer questions while keeping Shadow calm in the chaos. "What will you do now?" one reporter asked, their translation device making their clicking language understandable. "I just want to go see my aunt," Leo said. "That's why I came to this station in the first place. I've been stuck in holding rooms and courtrooms for 2 days." Everyone laughed. Myra eventually rescued Leo from the crowd, using her wings to create a barrier. She led him to a quieter corridor where they could talk. "You know what you started, yes?" she asked. "Not really," Leo admitted. "Humans have been in the galaxy for only 50 years. Most species still do not understand your kind. But now, because of you and Shadow, they are beginning to see what makes humans unique. You do not think in terms of threats and weapons. You think in terms of relationships and trust." "Is that good?" "It is revolutionary," Myra said. "Already other humans on the station are coming forward with their own companion animals. Dogs, cats, even small rodents. Things we would have classified as weapons or vermin. Now we must reconsider everything." A thought occurred to Leo. What about wild animals? Like, what if someone tries to bring a fully grown tiger to the station and says it's their companion? That is why the new law includes responsibility clauses. Humans will need to prove they can safely care for their companions. There will be testing, certification, and ongoing monitoring. It will not be easy or automatic. "That makes sense," Leo said. They walked together toward the residential section of the station. Shadow had fallen asleep in Leo's arms, exhausted from all the attention. "Leo," Myra said quietly, "I want to apologize. When you first arrived, I saw you as a problem to be solved. I did not see you as a child who loved his pet. I let law override compassion." "It's okay. You helped us in the end." "Only after you proved me wrong." Myra's feathers ruffled. "That is a lesson I will not forget." They reached the residential district where Leo's aunt lived. She was waiting outside her quarters, a tall human woman with kind eyes. When she saw Leo, she rushed over and hugged him tightly. "I've been watching everything on the news," she said. "I'm so proud of you and so sorry you had to go through all that." "It's okay, Aunt Rachel, we won." Rachel looked at Shadow, still sleeping peacefully. "So this is the famous hero panther. He's smaller than I expected." "He'll grow," Leo said, "but he'll always be Shadow, my best friend." Over the next few days, Leo settled into life on the station. Shadow became something of a celebrity. Aliens who had never seen a predator up close would stop Leo on the street, asking if they could pet Shadow. The panther cub seemed to enjoy the attention, purring whenever someone scratched behind his ears. The families whose children Shadow saved visited often. Keto and Shadow became inseparable friends, playing together in the station parks while their parents watched in amazement. The new companion animal law passed the Galactic Council within a week, a record speed for galactic legislation. Other humans began arriving at the station with their pets, eager to have them certified under the new rules. Leo often helped, showing aliens how to approach dogs or explaining why cats like to knock things off tables. One evening, Leo stood at the observation window in his aunt's quarters, watching ships come and go against the starfield. Shadow sat beside him, grown slightly bigger already, but still the same gentle companion. "You changed the galaxy, buddy," Leo said softly. "They used to think predators were evil. Now they're learning that anyone can be a hero if they choose to be." Shadow purred and rubbed against Leo's leg. Myra visited that evening, bringing news. The Galactic Council has officially invited humanity to participate in revising the weapon ban laws. Your people's experience with companion animals is now considered expert knowledge. They want humans to help write the new regulations." "Really?" Rachel asked, surprised. "Really? One human child and one panther cub accomplished what centuries of debate could not. You reminded us that laws should serve life, not restrict it." After Myra left, Leo sat with Shadow and thought about everything that had happened. He had just wanted to bring his pet to stay with his aunt. Instead, he had challenged galactic law, changed how aliens saw predators, and created a new legal category that would affect billions of lives. And he was still only 11 years old. "Come on, Shadow," Leo said, heading to his room. "Tomorrow we're supposed to meet with some Galactic Council members. We should get some sleep." Shadow followed, his tail swishing happily. In the room, Leo climbed into bed and Shadow jumped up beside him, curling into his usual spot against the boy's side. As Leo drifted off to sleep, he heard his aunt talking quietly with someone on a video call. "Yes, he's fine, better than fine. He's shown the galaxy that humans don't see the universe in terms of weapons and threats. We see friends waiting to be made, even in the most unexpected places. That's our gift to the galaxy. The ability to find family anywhere, even in creatures that were designed by nature to be dangerous. Because we understand that what you are born as matters less than what you choose to become." Leo smiled in the darkness. That was exactly right. Shadow's purring filled the quiet room, a sound of contentment and trust and love. The sound of a predator who had chosen to be a protector. The sound of a weapon that had never been a weapon at all, but instead had always been a friend. And somewhere in the vast galaxy, on thousands of worlds and stations and ships, people were learning that same lesson. That friendship could cross any boundary. That compassion could overcome fear. And that sometimes the bravest thing you could do was trust someone everyone else said you should fear. The galaxy would never be the same. And it all started with one boy and his Panther, proving that love was stronger than law. The end.